All right, KMR Rotary. Welcome back to the channel that Braps. Today we're looking at some damaged parts. Basically, an oil system failure or bearing failure. This is pretty rare. In the rotary world, I don't see nearly as many oil system or bearing failures as I do the normal overheats, fuel system issues, apex seal failures, warping, things like that. Generally, rotary oil systems are pretty good. So that would usually mean potential overheating or oil starvation, low oil pressure is usually the result in this type of stuff if it's not something driver-induced, like a misappropriated downshift or over rev. So getting beyond that, generally when you have an oil system failure, you're going to burn the motor up. In most cases, you're going to lose probably half the motor, if not more, and the entire oil system in the car is going to have to be flushed. Your oil coolers, your lines, everything either has to be replaced or flushed. The last thing you want is debris from the bearing falling apart, getting cooked, spinning. Last thing you want is that debris getting into your new motor. That would just cause the new motor to fail. Look at all those little metal parts right there. So clean your oil system if you have a bearing failure. And in this case, it looks like the rotor bearing failed, ate itself up, burned up the shaft, also spun itself in the rotor bearing journal. So that ruins the rotor in itself. We can no longer press a bearing in. And simultaneously, it walked itself out, which meant the rotor could float its way over to the side housing where it demolished the side housing. So in this case, center plate, rear bearing, shaft, and rotor, all garbage. There are some things we were able to salvage. In this case, that rear plate that got completely ate up, we were able to lap it down and basically bring it back. And that was cheaper than trying to replace this side plate. So where we can, we'll always use techniques that we have available to salvage what we can. But essentially, as you can see, things got really chewed up. Again, mentioning that a lot of the times when you have rotor bearing failure or any type of bearing failure, components, as they locked together, the bearing started to weld itself to the shaft due to heat and friction, then allowing the rotor to lose its press and walk over and damage itself and the side plate. So if you're noticing oil pressure drops, if you suspect debris in your oil system, I think it's generally wiser to investigate prior to having a full failure. So I hope this helps. I never like seeing this kind of stuff, but as we build motors, we often have to take apart blown up motors, and I'll try to introduce more of these failure topics to the channel so we can kind of get an understanding of how to avoid this stuff and what can cause this type of failure. This motor had been running for a couple years. It was not something I built. It's just come in for a rebuild because it's a known failed motor, and this is what we have to work with. So I hope everybody enjoys the channel, enjoys the content. Any questions about this, definitely ask below, but shaft, rotor, gears, all got to get replaced. If we can't resurface it, none of this is reusable, and cutting down shafts or polishing them out, you really have a very small amount of material to deal with. Just better to get a fresh used one or a new one in almost all the cases versus trying to salvage that. All right, that's a wrap. We got some new KMR stuff coming. Fancy little decal. Thanks for watching.